Alright, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Yesterday, obviously, wasn't great. Every single game that I liked started out rough, and they all tried to come back in the second half. One of which did. Quinnipiac ended up covering barely, but they did cover. And the other four games were just shit shows. Harvard scores a record season high 90 points. In any other world, when they score 82, they probably cover, but Harvard just had a fucking miracle day where they scored 20 more than usual. They could not miss shooting 58% from the field. St. Louis fell behind like 17 at half, ended up getting within 2 points, but blew it away at the end. Ryder, that game, Ryder was up by 11 at half. They ended up only winning by 3. The other team had a chance to tie it at the buzzer, but they failed to, of course. Again, St. Peter's, not a phenomenal team, but that's 67 points to a shitty Ryder team is unheard of with their defense. Just unlucky again. All those games sucked. 1-4. Ended up getting one win in that NBA. Lost about a little over a unit. Shitty day. Typical Friday in college basketball. But let's get into what I like for tomorrow. All right, as usual for Saturdays and Sundays, or at least any day with a significant slate, I just split up between 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. games, and I'll do 4:30 to midnight sometime in the morning instead. Now, this is a pretty big slate for the 12 to 4 p.m. games that I like. I'm trying a very different approach here, incorporating a bit more line movement and a couple other models that I've had in the past into today. So every single play here met all 5 models. So we'll see how it goes. This is a bit of a test, so if you want to tread lightly, I would recommend only betting the 3 stars as usual. But let's get into it. All right, game number 1, Wisconsin. I just think they are a significantly better team than this Northwestern team. Better defensively, better from the free throw line, better pretty much everywhere. If you look at where Wisconsin likes to score, they shoot a lot of threes. They're going to have a pretty favorable matchup here. Northwestern is 161st against defending the 3. Second chance opportunities, Northwestern is going to limit them, definitely. But I think just their shot attempts from 3-point are going to be enough to allow them to score enough to cover this short spread. Northwestern on the other side, not really known to be a crazy offensive team. They like to shoot a lot of mid-range shots. They might find a little bit of success there, but Wisconsin is still defensive at the 44th best. And points off second chances is typically something that they rely on to get a lot of points. They're 26th in the nation in point opportunities. Same with points off steals. Wisconsin's 13th best at not giving up turnovers and 20th best at defending the second chance opportunities. So Wisconsin's been playing really well. They've got all the momentum. I think they've been the better team in general this year, and they played significantly better on the road than they have played at home. So I think this is a good spot to back a Wisconsin team who's been rolling, and a Northwestern team that probably has considered themselves out of the Big Ten race. So I think this is a great spot for Wisconsin. All right, heading into game number 2, we have St. Joseph's heading on the road to play Loyola Chicago as very short 1.5-point favorites. Now, I just think they are strictly the better team. They've played harder teams, and they've been the better team. And they also play really well on the road. Now, if you look at kind of their matchups here, they like to shoot a lot of threes and get points off second chance opportunities. They're not a phenomenal 3-point shooting team in general, but Loyola, it's the one thing they don't defend really well at all. They're outside the top 200 in defending the 3. I think St. Joe's is going to find some success here. And off second chance opportunities, Loyola Chicago also doesn't defend. They're almost in the ranked 300s in giving up second chance opportunities. So I think St. Joe's is going to be able to score where they'd like to. If they need to get in the paint and mid-range, they'll have a lot of success because they do shoot those well when they do take them. On the other side, this Loyola Chicago team, they kind of similar. They like to take threes and near basket shots. Threes, St. Joseph's defends it pretty well, ranked 88th in the league. And again, they played significantly better competition, so you could probably deflate all of these matchups a little bit, give a slight edge to St. Joseph's. This line's a bit kind of tricky because I think they are the significantly better team. You're giving a lot of home edge here to a pretty mediocre Loyola Chicago team, in my opinion. But if you look at the last 2 times these 2 teams played, St. Joseph's just completely dominated them. I just think St. Joseph's is too good offensively. I think they're too stacked in their top three players. I just think they're gonna roll over this pretty shitty Loyola Chicago defense. And if you kind of look at the most recent matchups here, the St. Joseph's team 2-1 as road favorites. Loyola Chicago is 0-1 against the spread as home underdogs. And now the St. Joe's team is coming off a pretty solid win at home against Duquesne. I think they're in. I wouldn't say they're in a bit of a rut, but they've been playing some better competition as of late. But yeah, this is a St. Joseph team that beat, in my opinion, one of the better teams in the league in Texas Tech in the tournament early on. Loyola Chicago, they don't really have any wins that impress me. They played San Francisco, they lost by 10. They played VCU, they lost by 19. They played St. Joseph's, this team that they're playing again by almost 36. I don't see them coming home is going to give them that much of an opportunity here as like revenge spot. I just don't think they're good enough. This St. Joseph's team is still fighting really hard to keep ahead of this Loyola team. I just think they're the more ball-rounded team that have played better players, and I don't think revenge spot makes up for a 30-point deficit in the first time they played. So give me St. Joseph's here. All right, heading into game number 3, we have Louisville heading on the road to play at Georgia Tech. Now, I think the ship has sailed. There's no more denying how talented this Louisville team is. And when you're playing in the ACC, you got to take all the wins you get. And even though they have a really good record, I think they're going to continue to roll here. They played a harder schedule. They've been a top 25 team basically the last 2 months. And they're phenomenal on both sides of the ball. Now, this Louisville team, they played significantly better on the road than they have at home. They're ranked 4th in power rating when playing on the road. They seem to really step up when they're playing in front of other courts. And plus, this Louisville team, they haven't really been that good, so they don't really have like a loyal fan base like a lot of these other places. Now, Georgia Tech, if you look at their power ratings against good teams, they suck. Like, they only show up against bad teams. They're ranked 283rd against top 25 teams, 261st against top 50 teams. This just shows to me that this team cannot handle the step up in competition. We're getting Louisville as single digits. I think they absolutely roll this team. And if you look at Louisville, they play probably their worst against the top players, but against these mid schools, they're one of the best teams in the league. They're 3rd in teams ranked between 51 and 100. And that's exactly where this GT team lands. Now, Louisville on the road this year is away favorite. They're 2-0 against the spread. GT, as home underdogs, are 0-4 against the spread. We have this Louisville team that is absolutely just rolling everybody that they play. If you look at their most recent games, they crushed Wake Forest by, 13. They crushed SMU by 25. They crushed Virginia by 14. They crushed Syracuse by 24. They beat Pittsburgh in their home court, which is extremely impressive because it's one of the hardest places to play, by 4. They beat Clemson by 10. They beat Virginia by 20. They beat North Carolina by 13. They are crushing people. They had a really rough year at the beginning where they lost to Duke, to Mississippi, Oklahoma, and some pretty nasty losses. But they have so much momentum. And this Georgia Tech team, they've lost 5 of their last 6, and they've lost to pretty mediocre teams. They lost to Notre Dame by 3, Virginia Tech they beat by 7, but they lost to Florida State by 13. At home, they lost to Clemson by 11. And I think this Louisville team is a step up from Clemson. They got blown out at home by Duke by 24. I just think this is a phenomenal spot to back a very hot Louisville team that has played really good on the road. And this Georgia Tech team that has not been playing very well as of late. So that would be game number 3 for me. Now, I can understand the appeal for this Villanova team, but similar to a lot of other teams, I just don't think that they're really that great. And they really rely a little too heavily on the 3-point shot, and that's the shot that Creighton really defends the best. And they played a really hard competition this year, and I think that defense, that 3-point defense, is legitimate, top 25 3-point defense. And I think Villanova isn't hitting their threes like they want to, especially given how slow their pace is. I think Creighton has a good chance to cover the spread, if not win outright. If you look at where Creighton likes to shoot, they also like to shoot threes. Right, they're 36th in the nation in 3-point percentage, but they have a much more favorable matchup against a Villanova team that cannot defend the 3. They're ranked 243rd. Now, on the other side, this Villanova team also likes to basically only take threes, but you're going against a Creighton team that's 25th in 3-point defense. Again, Villanova, one of the best free throw shooting teams in the nation. Creighton fouls the least of any team in college basketball. So I don't think this Villanova is going to have any free points. Villanova, they typically, like most of these three-point shooting teams, they also don't like shooting mid-range. They might find some success in the mid-range, but again, that's a shot that they don't really want to be taking. They want to be taking the threes because that's what they shoot the best. If they have to settle, I don't think that's going to be solid for them. This Creighton team, on the other hand, again, I think they're going, they're a top 30 offense in the league. Again, I just think that their efficiency is going to be too much in the spot. They played such better teams. They have all the momentum here. The Villanova team has been regressing big time. But again, they have arguably a pretty favorable matchup here against Creighton. But I just think that Kalkbrenner's experience is going to be too much for them. But again, I think this game could go either way. That's why it's a half-unit game. But if I look at every signal, to me, this Villanova team is just not that phenomenal. They're not bad by any means, but I think Creighton is just slightly better than them. They're extremely consistent, and they do play pretty well against these mid to strong teams. If you look at their most recent games together, this Villanova game has lost 4 of the last 5, including Georgetown at home. They lost to Xavier by 3, St. John's by 12, Marquette. They beat Providence at home, but barely. Again, I think their most impressive win this year is beating a UConn team by 2. But again, this is a UConn team that is not even close to what they used to be. They beat Cincinnati by 8. But again, losing 4 of the last 5 against some good competition. They lost to Marquette. No big deal. But got Creighton. They also beat this UConn team, but on the road by 5. They've done well. They kept it pretty close against Alabama. They beat a really strong Kansas team at home. They beat. I just think this is a great matchup here for this Creighton team to continue to roll here against a Villanova team that might not be glistening with confidence. I'm just going to keep riding the wave here on this game. Villanova's 0-5 in the last 5 games against the spread. I think this continues. All right, game number 5, we have Florida Gulf State at home versus Stetson. Now, the Stetson team, I'll admit, they've been playing some pretty good basketball lately. But so is this Florida Gulf Coast team, and I think they're just going to be too much for the Stetson team. If you look at where Stetson likes to score, they kind of shoot everything a little bit. And really, the only thing where they might find success from is the 3. They're 157th in the 3-point percent, but they played so many bad teams. I'm just not confident that they're going to have that much success. Especially against this FGCU team that's been pretty good. Just overall, they've been a solid team. Now, on the other side, the Florida Gulf Coast team, very similar. They're pretty good at shooting everything, and they shoot everything pretty evenly. They're a very dynamic team. They played some much harder competition than Stetson has, and they're borderline a top 150 team, while Stetson's not even in the top 300 for me now. I could see where the Stetson team, they've been playing much better, at least in covering spreads. But this FGCU team has been playing really, really well. And they play their best against these really bad teams. If you look at their power ratings. And on the other side, the Stetson team plays really bad against these not so awful teams. If you look at the matchup, at home favorites, FGCU is 5-3 against the spread. Stetson is 7-3 as away underdogs, which is really my only concern here. But I think, again, these are mostly a system play. It met all of the criteria. Probably my least favorite game on the slate, but I'm going to bet it because I got to follow the system. So give me FGCU to cover 13.5 points at home. All right, now this Florida State team, I backed them recently where they had one of their worst performances all year, putting up only 15 points in the first half and almost actually coming back to win that game. But I think this is a perfect get-right spot for them. If you look at these two teams, Florida State, they lost 3 in a row to some pretty mid teams, California, Stanford, Virginia Tech, no super elite teams. And that's after they beat a Pittsburgh team. I'm not really sure where their confidence went. But on the other side, this is a good right. Like Boston College has been terrible. They had a good lead against North Carolina, and they blew it away to lose by 6. They lost to an awful Virginia team this year by 18 points. They lost to Duke by 25, which is natural. But they've been on a really bad stretch of games. at home or not at home. And I think this Florida State team is due for a solid get-right spot. Like before, they were dropping 80, 90 pretty consistently early on, and now they've barely broken 70, 3 games in a row. Yeah, I think they're due to get right here, and this Boston College team has been really bad. And there is still some risk that Elias Strong is not going to play with illness. He's sat out for 3 games now. And especially if he doesn't play, I love this line. But I still think they're not a very good team, even if he does play. Pretty much through every game that I've watched of Florida State, they had. I just think this is a great spot. I think they're due for a big win here against a really bad squad. All right, heading into game number 7, we have Duquesne at home versus UMass. Now, this UMass team has been much better lately. But I do think this Duke team still has a lot to prove. And really, this UMass team relies a little too heavily on free throws, and they just don't shoot the free throw well enough, where I think they're going to succeed in this spot to dominate this Duke team. Now, Duquesne is not the best team ever, by any means. But I do think their pace is going to really bother UMass. They've played some really tough competition. And getting them on such a short spread on their home court where they've been playing much better, I just think this is a phenomenal spot to back them. If you look at ATS trends between these two teams, this UMass team is coming off a pretty nasty loss last game against a pretty okay Rhode Island team. Before that, they were rolling. They put up 120 points against Fordham, 82 against LaSalle, 74 against George Washington. But I don't think they're really this good. And now this Duquesne team, they went on they were 7-1, and now they're on a 3-loss streak, including 2 on the road. Now they're heading back home against a UMass team that's going to be continuing a road trip after a tough loss, where they completely just got dominated by Rhode Island. I think this is a good spot. Duke at home, they've been okay. They are 5-5 against the spread. They are 1-4 against spread as away favorites, and UMass is 4-1 as away underdogs, which is why I think we're getting such a short line, based on that trend specifically. But yeah, I think this is just a classic bounce back spot between a team that I do consider to be on the same level, if not slightly better than UMass. And if UMass is going to rely so heavily on shooting free throws, I think this Duke team who shoots threes really well and loves to shoot threes. If their threes are falling, and I think they do fall at a much higher rate at home, they're going to outpace this UMass team who's going to rely too much on fouling. And Duke has a lot of bench players, so I'm not too concerned about a depth issue. So give me Duke at home as a short favorite. All right, game number 8. We have Utah on the road versus Oklahoma State. Now, I don't love to continuously fade this Oklahoma State team because they are due eventually to win, especially at home. But I just think this is a spot here against a Utah team that just matches up too well against them. Now, if you look at this Oklahoma State team, they like to score almost exclusively in the paint. And they sometimes shoot mid-range shots, but that's usually a desperation shot. But this Utah team is ranked number 1 in college basketball in defending the near basket shot. So I just think Oklahoma State is going to really struggle to score here. They're going to probably have to rely on free throws really to get anything going. And they're a pretty okay free throw shooting team. But I just think that's going to be too much of a hassle against this Utah team that has been pretty good. I have them almost top 50. Oklahoma State, I have them outside the top 100. Now, if you look at Utah, how they like to score, they also like to score in the paint. And pretty much everywhere they like to score, they're going to find success. Near basket, they take the 14th most near basket shots. And they have their 70th in the nation in near basket percentage against Oklahoma State. That's outside the top 200 and defending it. You're going to find some success getting free throws. They're a really bad free throw shooting team, but they get a lot of points off secondary opportunities. Oklahoma State is at the top 200 in defending their own paint, especially offensive rebounds. I think this is just an unfavorable matchup for a Utah team that has been better in general than this Oklahoma team. Now, I'm not saying Utah has been this powerhouse squad especially not as of late. But I do think the fact that they're going to really struggle to score in the paint is going to frustrate this Oklahoma State team. They are not looking phenomenal lately. If you look at the two most recent games, they are on a 3-loss streak. They lost 5 of their last 6, 7 of their last 9. They really haven't looked great. But neither has Utah, right? They've lost 2 of their last 3, but before that they were kind of rolling. They got crushed by Houston, who wouldn't, crushed by Iowa State, crushed by Texas Tech, crushed by Baylor. They had a pretty close one versus Iowa, but they did beat they beat BYU, they beat TCU, they already beat this Oklahoma State at home. Again, I don't really fully love these revenge spots because I don't think Oklahoma State is good enough to make up a 21-point difference in their own home court. And this Utah team is rolling. They just had a really good home win against Cincinnati. They're going to be feeling pretty confident. And this Oklahoma State just got blown out by a pretty average Kansas State team by 25 points. So I think both teams are going to be in very different headspaces. And I know, even though Utah hasn't played that well on the road and Oklahoma State has played better at home, I just think on paper this Utah team is a really annoying matchup for Oklahoma State. So I think you could argue either way in this specific matchup, but I am going to take Oklahoma State to cover the short +1 spread. Again, I would take them on the money line. I just think this Utah team is just, they just dominated that last game too much. I just don't see a world where Oklahoma State can make adjustments when they don't shoot well from outside the paint. So give me Utah to win that game, probably outright. All right, heading to game number 9, we have Illinois-Chicago at home versus Indiana State. Now, this is a really good Illinois-Chicago State. Like, they've been really good this year, kind of flying under the radar. But yeah, I think this Indiana State team has looked really bad lately. They've lost 7 of their last 8. The only team they just beat was at home against a significantly worse Missouri State team. While Illinois-Chicago is, going to be playing with a lot of confidence here, continuing their road trip, playing against a pretty average. They're coming off a high win over beating a pretty strong Bradley team in a great revenge spot. I just think they are, they've been a better team. They've beat some really good teams. They beat Drake. They beat Yale. They beat Illinois State. And this Indiana State team hasn't really beat anyone notable. I think their best win this year is against Murray State, who's not even a top 100 team. So when I compare the skills of these two teams, we're getting UIC back at home, where they actually haven't really played better basketball. They've actually been playing better on the road. But I do think this matchup is just going to be a little bit too much for them. An Indiana State team that is just struggling way, way too much. If you look at how UIC likes to shoot, they're going to have success everywhere they like to shoot, from 3, from mid-range. They shoot everything. They're going to find success on the offensive boards, and they played a much harder schedule. Top 100 to Indiana State's 163rd. Indiana State, they like to shoot up threes, and that's something that UIC defends well, ranked 77th in the nation. So even though this Indiana State has played well on the road and they are a pretty consistent team, if their threes aren't falling, I don't think they're going to be scoring. So give me UIC here to cover the 7.5 home favorite number. All right, heading into game number 10, we have Middle Tennessee at home. Now, this UTEP team, they haven't been bad by any means, but Middle Tennessee has played a much harder schedule in the Conference USA, despite UTEP having a better record. And I just think they beat a more better balanced team. If you look at where Middle Tennessee likes to score from, they like to shoot near basket, and that's pretty much all they do. They're a big team. They sit in the paint, score, and get the rebounds. Occasionally, they'll throw it out to get a 3. Now, they're not going to score very many threes. UTEP is a solid team there, but in the paint, they just can't defend it. They're ranked 347th in paint, and that's where MTSU is just going to live. They won't need to shoot out threes. UTEP is ranked 347th in defending the paint to Middle Tennessee's 124th in near basket percentage, and Middle Tennessee 24th in second chance opportunities to UTEP's 301st in giving up offensive boards. So I think Middle Tennessee is going to dominate this game. And this UTEP team, how do they typically like to score? They shoot mid-range and near basket, both where MTSU has a favorable defensive matchup. Really the only thing that UTEP is going to be able to do, and they're not going to be able to do it that well, is get some steals. But MTSU is ranked top 40 in turnovers given up. I think this MTSU's team is gonna be able to dominate this matchup, both down low and in the perimeter. So Give me Middle Tennessee to cover the relatively short home spread number. All right, game number 11 or 12. I don't even remember. I think 11. I just think this FDU team is significantly better than this Mercyhurst team. I don't fully believe in them yet, even though they have a better record than FDU. I think that's why we're getting a pretty solid number here. But FDU has been the better team. They played a harder schedule. And this Mercyhurst team really has not done anything well. They're inconsistent. They've played bad teams. They've had an easy schedule. And when your average season rank is outside the top 350, and you've also had the 352nd easiest schedule, or hardest schedule rather, it means you're a bad team. Now, where does this Mercyhurst team like to score? They like to shoot mid-range mostly, and they're ranked 349th in mid-range shots. They occasionally shoot threes, and they're going to fail because FDU is a top 35 three-point defense. On the other side, FDU, not the best offensive team by any means. They're barely a top 300 offensive team, but the one thing they do really well is get points off steals. And I think being at home here, they're going to really piss off this Mercyhurst team, make them make mistakes. Mercyhurst is one of the worst teams on the road. They're not a big team by any means. They're not a very athletic team. I'm not going to say FDU is the most athletic team I've ever seen, but they are a more athletic team by far than this Mercyhurst team. And FDU, they're due for a home favorite win. They're 0-2 as home favorites. They played much better on the road. And technically, Mercyhurst has played better on the road as well. But FDU, I think the spread is too low. I think Mercyhurst is playing above their head. They've won 3 games in a row at home. Now they're going on the road against another team that's rolling, and they beat also some pretty mid teams. But again, I just think this is a good spot to back a team. Mercyhurst, they lost 3 of the last 4 when they had to travel over 300 miles, and they're a new school. I'm sure they have to take some shitty buses to get there, and this is going to be their first road game. Letdown spot. FDU is going to continue to roll at home. Give me FDU to cover this short home -5 number. All right, game number 12 or 11, whatever. I think this number's a little bit too big. I do think Alabama is a phenomenal team. They've played the hardest schedule in college basketball. But I think this Georgia team matches up okay against them. Enough where I think they might have a chance to keep this number-ish close. Like, Alabama is going to run all over them. They play so fast. But this Georgia team's, I think they like this kind of, step up in competition. If they want to prove that they're legitimate contenders in the SEC, they have to beat teams like this. And yeah, if you look at, the matchups, how does Alabama typically like to score? They like to shoot threes and near basket shots. From 3, Georgia's the 12th best team at defending the 3. And from near basket, they're the 19th best team at defending the near basket. The only thing they don't defend well is the mid-range, and that's a shot that Alabama basically never takes. They take about 17% of their shots are mid-range, but they mostly take threes in near basket. Again, they also are a really good team at getting secondary opportunities. They are 20th in points off secondary opportunities and 12th in second opportunity points. But this Georgia team, they're ranked 38th in defending their own boards. So I think they're going to be able to limit a little bit this Alabama's success on the boards. Alabama probably will find some success from getting points off steals, but they're not even a top 100 team in points off steals. I don't know if that's going to be a significant issue. I don't know. I think this number's slightly too big. I don't love it because Alabama is one of those teams that has the ability to just completely crush teams out of nowhere. But we've seen Alabama get upset before. This Georgia team, they like to get points. They're probably not going to score very much where they like to in the near basket. But they do have a okay matchup, 39th to 35. But the biggest thing is Georgia likes to get secondary opportunities. They are one of the best teams at converting them. And they're going to have a decent matchup here. They're 4th in the nation at second chance percentage. Alabama's only 67th at defending it. So I think we're going to see a pretty solid team. I think Georgia shoots the free throw slightly better, and Alabama fouls a little bit more. So I think there's certain ways that Georgia's going to find ways to score here. And then if you look at their matchups here, this Alabama team, they're pretty good as home favorites. They're 5-5. But yeah, Georgia, they're 0-4 as away underdogs. And I don't think that that is deserved from what I've been watching them. A lot of these are close losses. And I think that's also benefiting us to get a significantly better number here. I think Georgia is yeah, I think they're going to find success in this game. I generally do. They've had a really hard in-conference schedule, actually harder than Alabama's has been, despite Alabama having the hardest schedule prior. And they've been playing pretty solid basketball as of late. And both these teams are super inconsistent, and I think this is a good chance for Georgia to potentially find some success here. So give me Georgia as 13-point dogs. I don't love it just because you never know with Alabama, but I think they have a chance to keep this game close. All right, game number 14, 13, whatever it is. I think Kansas is being a little bit disrespected here. Now, Baylor is due for a good game, and they have played much better at home, but Kansas has also played much better on the road. And I do think they are a better team than Baylor. If you look at their most recent ratings, Kansas, they've been playing a bit worse as of lately. But if you look at how both these teams play against other top 25 teams, Kansas kind of steps up the competition more. Against top 25 teams, Baylor is ranked 78. Against top 25 teams, Kansas is ranked 17th. So I think when it comes to a step up, this Kansas team is a little bit more experienced than this pretty young Baylor team. I think there's a lot of good things to look at. This line moved from +2 to -2. I think there's going to be a little bit too much action on the Baylor side because it is theoretically the sharp side, as it typically is, especially after they just came off of a loss. And Kansas team is coming off of a really contested win at home. Now they're heading on the road, where they're traveling, over 500 miles. But the last times they've had to travel over 500 miles, they beat Cincy, they beat TCU, they beat Michigan State, and they obviously lost to Iowa State. But this, on the other side, this is a Baylor team that just lost to TCU, a team that Kansas just crushed. I think we're getting points here with a Kansas team that is due. Baylor has owned this matchup in the past. I think Kansas is due after losing the last two matchups, or losing the last matchup rather, but not covering the last two. And I think Kansas is just the more talented team in this spot, and they have a really great matchup here. If you look at where Baylor likes to score, they are a pretty universal team. They don't shoot anything. They shoot basically all three shots pretty much. But they also really rely heavily on points off steals and second chance opportunities. These are two things that Kansas defends pretty well. They are 31st in defending second chance opportunities and 57th in points off steals. And in terms of where they typically like to shoot, mid-range, Kansas is just they're ranked 7th in defense. They're going to be able to stop them pretty comfortably. And on the other side, this Kansas team, they like to shoot mid-range shots, which they're not going to find very much success in. And that's kind of a good thing because I want them to just live in the paint because they are the #1 paint team in college basketball. In near basket percentage, it was 69% field goal percentage. And Baylor does not defend it well at all. They're ranked 266th in near basket percentage given up. So I think this is just a phenomenal spot for this Kansas team to just eat up the paint. They're going to get a lot of free baskets, probably get fouled a lot, where they are a pretty solid free throw shooting team. I can understand where Baylor's due for a bounce back spot, and Kansas has been on and off. But I do think that mismatch in the paint is going to give a huge edge to a Baylor team that plays way too slowly to probably keep up with the free points that Kansas is going to get. So, yeah, give me Kansas here as +2.5 point dogs. All right, in the final game, we have McNeese on the road. Now, I just think this McNeese team is going to dominate this Nichols team. I think we're getting a good line because these two teams played, and McNeese only won by 9, and they were in McNeese's court. And so you're like, oh, they only won by 9. They didn't even cover at home. So they're probably gonna get a short line on them here again. But if you look at that game, McNeese, the Coles shot way too well from the free throw line. They shot 89% from the free throw line, which is way too good for a team like McNeese versus like Nichols. They typically don't shoot their free throws that well. They're average 70%, below 70% in free throw percentage. So that went for them. On the other side, this McNeese team that averages 73%, they only shot 74%. So they actually shot pretty well, but they had 39 free throw attempts. And they didn't shoot their three well at all. They shot 15 three-point attempts, but I don't think they're going to do that again because that didn't seem to work too well for them. And they just did not shoot. Otherwise, they didn't shoot that well. They shot 37% from the field. And against a really bad McNeese defense, Nichols defense, that's ranked 181st. I don't think they're going to shoot that poorly again. Sincere Parker shot 3 for 13. Javon Garcia 6 for 12. Quadrier Copeland 5 for 14. 0 for 3. 2 for 7. 2 for 7. Basically everyone except for one guy shot awful. And I just think we're due for look at the turnovers. Nicole's had an additional 3 turnovers this game. McNeese dominated the rebounds 46 to 35. They had an additional 5 field goal attempts on top of an additional 13 free throws. I think this game goes differently. I think McNeese knows they didn't play very well in that game. And they're coming off a really close win, arguably kind of embarrassing almost win. I think they're going to crush this Nicole's team second time around. All right, and those are all of the games between the 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. slate that I like. Again, it is a shit ton of games, and I would understand if you don't want to bet them all, especially since I did talk, kind of maybe poorly about some of these games. But yeah, I think I kind of do like all of the games. I think if I had to pick 2 that I don't like the most, you probably heard it in my voice when I did say it. Probably Florida State, just because they only scored 50 points in the last first half, and probably this Georgia team, because those are just one of those games that could go either way. But these top 3 I actually really do like. I'll probably have another video up. If I don't have another video up tomorrow, because I do have a bit of a busy day and there's still quite a few games to get through, I will post them in my Discord, and you'll see them on my spreadsheet, which are down below in the comments or in the description. But I will try my best to at least get a video up just for the 3 stars. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully we have a nice bounce back day here. And if you have any questions on any games, you can check the spreadsheet, or you can comment them down below, and I'll be sure to respond. Cheers.